Today our lesson is on writing linear equations in two different ways. First, given a point and a slope, and then given 2 points. Okay, so we've already written linear equations in slope-intercept form. Remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Okay, so now we're going to look at point-slope. So just like slope-intercept is y equals mx plus b, we're going to look at point-slope and see what form that looks like. So to write the equation of the line passing through the point x1 comma y1 with slope m, you can use the point-slope formula. So x1 comma y1, do you remember, you know how we use the slope formula, like y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1? Think about this point the same way, x1, y1. So let's pretend we had a graph and it said write the equation of the line passing through x1, y1. I guess we actually don't need a graph. Let's just pretend I said it was passing through 5, 2. 5 would be your x1 and 2 would be your y1. That's all that means, okay? So just call your x point x1 and y point y1. That doesn't change, it's still x comma y. We just put a little 1 underneath it, okay? Now slope, your slope is still m. That makes sense. We've done that before. Slope is m. Now this is the point slope formula. Are you ready? Here we go. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, I wrote it in different colors because I want you to see this x1 here and this y1 here. That's your point. That's what you're going to be plugging into. You're plugging into x1 and y1. You're leaving this x and this y alone. So do not plug anything into that, this x and this y, okay? But you're going to plug into x1 and y1. Now m is your slope. So actually I'm going to do this. Slope is m, right? So that's your slope. Now it says be sure to distribute and solve for y. So don't forget, we're actually solving for y. Which y are we solving for? We're solving for this y. Okay, so I'll say solving that y. That's what we're solving for. Okay, you're going to see this. See this down here? Examples given a point and a slope. That's where we're going to be using this formula and with this information. So I'll show you that in a minute. So writing using 2 points, to write a linear equation that passes through 2 points. Now here's x1, y1 and x2, y2. Use the slope formula. Okay, we know what that is, followed by the point slope formula. And point slope, we just learned what that was. So slope formula. Remember the slope formula was m equals y2 minus, this is just what I was talking about, right? Over x2 minus x1. So remember, you're given 2 points now. You're given 2 points, x1, y1, and x2, y2. Use the slope formula, followed by the point slope formula. So first you're going to find your m, and then you're going to plug in the point to the point slope formula. So again, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1 minus x1. All right, so again, we just plug it into that formula. So your m, this m right here that I'm making a different color now to match this is going to be plugged in there. All right, and then you're going to use your point x1, y1 to plug in for your point slope formula. So let's try it. The first one. The first set. Write the equation of the line that passes through the given point and has the given slope. Write all final answers in slope-intercept form. Okay, so when we're given a point and we're given a slope, which one do you think we're going to use? We're going to use point-slope formula. Point-slope. You're given a point and you're given a slope. Remember, for y-intercept, we were given for slope-intercept, we're given a slope and we're given a y-intercept. For point-slope, we're given a point and we're given a slope. Cool, so let's plug it in. So I'm going to label my points first. I'm going to label this x1, y1, and your slope, remember, is m. So m equals 2. And I'm going to rewrite this formula down here so I can know what to plug it into. Y. And then minus y1 equals m times x minus, and then I'm going to write that x1. So let's plug in what we have. So we have y, remember we always keep this y by itself. We keep that, we don't plug anything into that. We plug it into the y1. So y minus 1 equals, my slope I said was 2, right? And then x, I keep that always, I just keep that in there. X minus, your x1 is 4, and that's it. Now, this looks really weird. This is your point slope formula. So if I said leave it in point slope form, this is how you'd leave it. If I said leave it in point slope form, that's how you leave it. But what do they want you to write? It says write all final answers in slope intercept form. So we're not leaving it in that form. We're going to write it in slope intercept. So I'm going to distribute here. That's the first step. Y minus 1 equals 2x minus 8. Now I can't combine these terms here, but I can move the 1 to this side. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. Y, negative 1 plus 1, that just cancels, equals 2x. What's negative 8 plus 1? Negative 7. That's in slope-intercept form. That's my answer. Okay, number 2. So, label it again, x1, y1, and your slope is m. Okay, now watch this. This is important. Y minus. This is the last time I'll do it with colors, but I want you to see the difference here when it's a negative. So notice that x1 and y1 are negative now, so watch this. Okay, y minus, that's part of my formula, right? That y minus was also here. I just carried it down, and I plugged 1 into y1. Do you see that? Now watch what happens here. I have to plug in a negative 3 this time. y1 here is negative 3, so when I plug in a negative 3, I have two negatives right next to each other, so be careful with that. Now I have negative 1 for my m, x minus, again that minus is part of the equation, and my x1 is negative 4. You see that? So what's going to have to happen here and here, we're going to add. Make that a big plus sign. When you have the opposite of a negative is a positive. So two negatives right next to each other is a positive. All right. So remember, this would be point slope form. If I asked you to leave it in point slope form, you'd leave it like that. But it asks for slope intercept, and slope intercept is y equals mx plus b. So our goal here is to get this y alone. So y plus 3 equals negative 1x minus 4. We're just distributing that negative 1. Now I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. Y equals negative 1x minus 7. Negative 3 minus 4 is negative 7. All right, so let's just plug in. I'm not even going to write. I'm not even going to label. If it helps you to label and do different colors, I would. So we're going to plug in our y1, which is, so that negative, we bring that negative down, but then we're going to bring in negative 9 equals, m is 4 times x minus, and then my x1 is just a 0. Okay, so this guy turns into a big plus sign. I have y plus 9 equals, I'm going to distribute this, 4x minus, well 4 times 0 is 0, right? So now I'm going to get y alone, subtract 9. Do you see the pattern? We're doing the same thing every single time. Y equals 4x minus 9. That 0 didn't even have to be there if you didn't want to put that negative 0, minus 0. You don't have to put that. Okay. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Let's plug in. So y minus, now my y1 is -1, equals, my slope is -3/4 times x minus, my x1 is -8. Okay, so now add that. Add that. Do you see when there's two negatives next to each other, you always make them a plus sign. Now here's a fraction. -3/4 times x is -3/4 x. -3/4 times 8, now this is how we do this. -3/4 times 8 over 1. So I'm just going to multiply across. -24 over 4. What's -24 divided by 4? -6. Okay, so that means that -3/4 times 8 is -6. So I'm just going to say -6 here. And then I'm just going to solve like normal. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. That cancels, and I have y equals -3/4 x minus, well, -6 minus 1 is a -7. Okay, I want you guys to try number 5. And then number 6, let's do this last one. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. We start in point slope. We're going to plug in our point. So remember, our y1 is just this 1, and then our x1 is at 4. Our slope is -1/4. X minus x1 is a -4. I'm going to turn this guy into a huge plus sign. Y minus 1 equals, I'm going to distribute there, -1/4 x. Now this piece, -1/4 times 4 over 1. Always put it over 1 if it's not already a fraction. Multiply across. -4 over 4. So that's -1. -4 divided by 4 is -1. So I'm going to replace that here. So -1, because I know -1/4 times 4 is -1. Now I'm going to add 1 to both sides. Y equals -1/4 x. -1 plus 1 is just 0. So that's it. We don't need to put that plus 0, but if you put plus 0, it's not wrong. Okay, I want you guys to try 5, and now we're going to look at the second piece. Do you see how it says writing linear equations given 2 points? Here we were given a point and a slope, right? Here. That's what we did here when we're given a point and a slope. But now we're going to be given 2 points, so we're going to be using this. We're going to start with the slope formula, and then we're going to write it in the point slope formula. Okay, so let's start with the slope formula. Okay, so the first step, slope formula. So m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So let's plug this in. I have -1 minus 7 over x2 is positive 1 minus my x1 is -3. So -1 minus 7 is a -8. -1, now here again, minus a negative, that's a plus. So 1 plus 3 is 4. You have a bigger number on top, so you're going to make it a whole number. -8 divided by 4 is a -2. So I just found out my slope is -2. That's my first step. My second step is to do the point slope formula. So this is what we're going to plug it into now. Now, we have 2 points, right? It doesn't matter which one you plug in. You're going to get the same answer. So I'm going to choose my first point. It doesn't matter though. You can put any point in. So 2, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. I'm going to plug in I'm going to just use this point, but it doesn't matter. You can even try 1, -1, okay? You're going to get the same answer. So I'm just going to plug this in. Okay, so I have y minus, my y here is 7, equals, my slope I just got was -2, I'm plugging that in here, times x minus, my first x point, my x1 was -3 from the point that I chose. Oops. Okay, now make this a plus, and we're going to keep going. Y minus 7 equals, I'm going to distribute here, -2x minus 6 plus 7 plus 7. Y equals -2x. -6 plus 7 is +1. Why did I write it like that? Because it asks, write all final answers in slope-intercept form. This is slope-intercept form. Okay? All right, let's try another one. So the first step, start with my slope. All right, so when I plug that in, my second y point is -4. So I'm going to put -4, and I'm going to subtract my first y point, and my first y point is a -7. My second x is a 3 minus, and then my first x is a -6. So I'm going to make this a big plus, a big plus. -4 plus 7 is no, it's not. It's +3. And then 3 plus 6 is 9. Now this is not 3. It's 3 over 9. So since the smaller number's on top, we can simplify this. 1/3. So my slope is 1/3. Okay. Cool, now I'm going to plug it in. Number 2 is using the point slope. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I'm going to plug in, it doesn't matter. I'm going to choose a second point this time, just to show you it really doesn't matter. And you can try the first point if you want. So y minus, my y1 is a -4, equals, my slope is 1/3 times x minus, and then my x1, or my x point of the point that I chose, is 3. We're used to this. We make this a big plus sign. We're going to say y plus 4 equals, now I'm going to distribute 1/3 x. Okay, I'm going to put this over 1, and I'm going to do it over here. 1/3 times negative, don't forget the negative in front right here. That negative is part of that 3. So -3 over 1. When I multiply across, I get -3 over 3, and -3 divided by 3 is -1. So I'm going to replace that here. Now I'm going to subtract 4 to both sides. So y equals 1/3 x. -1 minus 4 is -5. That is slope-intercept. All right, next one. So start with my slope. Okay, my slope is y2 is 5 minus, my y1 is 6, x2 minus x1, 5 minus 6 is -1, 2 minus 1 is 1, so -1 over 1 is just -1, so my slope is -1. Now I'm going to plug it into point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Doesn't matter which point I use, I'm just going to choose the first point. So y minus, my y point that I chose is 6. My m I got was -1. X minus, my x point of that coordinate is 1. and then I distribute. So y minus 6 equals negative 1x. Negative 1 times negative 1 is a positive 1. Add 6 to both sides. Y equals negative 1x plus 7. Or you could say y equals negative x plus 7. Okay, I'm going to do 4. I want you guys to do 5 and 6. Okay, so first step, find slope. y2, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. If you need to label, please label. Okay, I'm only not labeling because I know I've showed you guys labeling a lot. So if you still are not comfortable labeling, please label. It'll help you. So 2 plus 14 is 16. 3 plus 9 is 12. Now simplify. I'm going to divide this by 4, and I'm going to divide this by 4. So m equals 16 divided by 4 is 4, and 12 divided by 4 is 3. Now my second step is to plug in point slope. I'm going to use the positive point because this looks a little easier to plug in than the negative 9, negative 14. y1 is 2 equals, my slope is 4/3 times x minus my x value is 3. So y minus 2 equals distribute. So this is 4/3 x. Okay, now I have 4 over 3 times negative 3. And remember, I always put that over 1 if it's not a fraction, so I can make it a fraction. So that equals, well, 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. And 3 times 1 is 3. Negative 12 divided by 3, this is not a fraction because a bigger number is on top, so it's minus 4. And then I substitute that in where I just multiplied, so minus 4. Last step, plus 2 to both sides. I know this is super repetitive, but if you're understanding it at this point, that's awesome. Okay, math you need to repeat many times to understand, and it takes a couple days to sink in. So that's why I have you guys do so many examples. So I want you guys to try 5 and 6. You try. And then show me when you're finished.